Howdy everyone, this is Voltage, and I'm gonna reacting to another David Daily thing. This is if every killer fought, who will win. This is from 9 months ago by AZHYMOVS, who is a YouTuber I actually do tend to watch a little bit, but this video I actually haven't watched because on my list, but never watched it before in the past. And personally, I do like quite a lot of the lore and accuracy of Dead by Daylight, but this is before Spring took it out, so let's see what happens, I guess.
Dead by Daylight fought. Today we're going to consider.
Gonna quickly do this to make it so it's a bit better quality. Also, I will be crediting AZHYMOVS in the description and putting the link in the description as
how
well.
it might go down. For this, we're including all the current base characters, but also the legendary and cosmetic
also added the cosmetic
too.
skins.
If
Okay.
the entity told them all to clash until only one remains, who would it be? I'm also going to consider which characters could possibly ally with one another. For example, I could see Pinhead and the Chatterer grouping up.
I do see them working together.
There can only be one winner,
Probably the
though.
nurse
So
and Wraith
even
work
in
together.
these cases, by the end, they will all turn on one another.
Mhm.
Let's get into it. At the very beginning, the first characters to fall are more than likely going to be the characters with little in the way of attack, defense, or resistance.
So probably Legion.
The very first to fall, though, I have
Nurse.
quite clear in my mind, and it might surprise you, but I think as the fight breaks out and the characters scramble for what to do, one character is going to get targeted and eliminated quickly.
Chucky as well.
That is Blight.
Blight, really?
Most characters on the killer side.
Oh no, I know why. Because he has blighted so many of the killers on the roster, so they've got to be getting me pissed off with him.
Toward anyone else, but a lot may not be a fan of Blight, who injected many of them
Yep.
with his serum.
Nemesis, Wesker.
Take Trapper for example here, who got chained up and injected. Therefore, there's going to be a rush to exact revenge and take him down first, overwhelmed by multiple oncoming attackers. I could see Blight repelling a few for a bit, but ultimately failing when his serum fails to overwhelm them all at once. The next to fall would likely be Nurse.
Yeah, because her blink makes her go in pain.
Back an opponent or two, she would quickly get overwhelmed due to her fatigue. She can blink a few times, but needs to take a long breather, and her weapon strength is very little.
Yeah, her hacksaw is not exactly super effective, I'd say.
And push back someone, but one stray blade swiping her way, and I think she quickly falls. The same goes for a character like Pig, who is small.
Yeah, Amanda Young, she's not exactly physically powerful, and her knife won't do much.
She might make a few swipes, but even some of the more human characters like Legion could reasonably take.
There are 4 members of the Legion, that's why they could beat her out, probably.
Lumbering mask. Maybe she could sneak up on a Legion member and place a trap on their head, but she wouldn't last long after that, but make it to still play her games. Bubba, despite having a sweeping chainsaw and being capable of repelling many of the characters back, he would not be able to do this forever. I think in the Chaos 2, he would panic and sort of make himself a target by just going wild in the middle of a group of characters, flailing around.
If his chainsaw hits someone like Nemesis,
seeing this and quickly pushing him aside,
that might just be bad.
Sending the assassin to dip beneath his saw and finish him. Billy, in a similar way, is a bit more resistant.
Yeah.
He's quick, but he also would try and fight a little too eagerly, I think. He would dive into the chaos with a sprint, possibly clipping a character or two on his way, but catching a lethal swing from someone with quick reaction.
Probably like Dracula or something like that would probably get to him.
He could survive longer, I think, but he would be too compelled by the chaos to keep away. There are a few characters in this first wave that, despite dying, I do think would cause a bit of chaos themselves, but if they did, Plague is a great example of this.
Yeah, Adiras, she could be a bit of a pod maker and poison a lot of people before she falls.
Across a bunch of her opponents. This will likely cause her to be targeted fairly early on, but it would mean she would cause lasting damage to all of them, weakening anyone who got infected, aside maybe some of the stronger, godly types. She could also be targeted
Dredge, for example,
by the characters who dislike the entity, seeing as she worships it. Trapper possibly could come to take her down. This would leave Trapper weak though, and I do think despite his strength and resilience, he wouldn't last too long either.
Yeah, Trapper is generally pretty strong, but he's not exactly great in the examples for fight combat-wise, because he only has a knife. Well, not a knife, a cleaver.
Of someone stronger like Knight or Oni, he would try and take on something bigger and stronger than him, much like he does when facing down the entity. Only this time, he would fall. Clown is another case of this, someone who could throw his bottles down and not affect himself, but only others. Admittedly though, a bunch bunch of characters probably would not feel much effect from the bottles either, and would be resistant.
Like, just say
But
Michael
many would
Myers,
still,
Freddy
and
would
I
not
think I can
care at
see him
all.
being taken down by someone simply faster or able to surprise him, such as Spirit. Ferryman likely wouldn't last long, having very little in the way of defense, and no real weapon in his ore. He could maybe bonk a few others,
Yep,
but
an
ultimately
ore does
would
not
go
sound like a
down
weapon.
fairly quickly, maybe to someone like Dredge, returning him to a sort of underworld. Jabberwock is sort of stunted in the realm by being forced into a similar form to Artist, and so having ink hands. Its wings don't seem strong enough to carry it. I think it would be fairly helpless and quickly swiped down by someone else. Maybe
Huh.
ganged
Don't
up
know.
on
Don't know
by
about
a
Jabberwock,
villager.
honestly.
Artist could also cause a little chaos, although
Yeah,
would fall
Artist is
quickly
honestly
too.
dead first
She
wave.
could
I'm not
fire her crows
surprised.
out and swarm different people. They'd have to bat the
Her
crows away,
crows are not
allowing her to
exactly
attack. Although
most
her weapon
lethal,
is just her ink blade. I think maybe she does a little damage, but wouldn't do too much.
and the Inkblade
I could
won't
see
do
her
much.
irritating lots of characters with this. Possibly someone like Oni, who is easily angered, would go for her. So after the initial chaos settles and many of the weaker characters first fall, I do think there would still be a few who survive, but not too long after the others. Legion are a good example
Yeah,
of this.
Legion.
I
There's
think they would
4 of
survive
them.
longer simply numbers-wise. They have more members and so are technically standing even if just one is alive. However, I think they would be slowly picked off one by one in the opening as they huddle up back to back trying to defend themselves. Almost everyone around them would be stronger, able to slowly whittle them down until it's just one left.
Say
I
they
can
meet
see
someone like
characters
Oni,
like
they're
Doctor,
fucked.
Billy, Slinger, and even Clown possibly trying to go for them. And of course there's Pig's Trap, which would eventually pop. Trickster is another character who I think would maybe survive a little longer with
I
his
do see though. I do
higher
Trickster. I do see
agility
Trickster
and
starting
being able to
slightly.
repel people with his knives, just spamming them at them. An ability to fly a bunch of knives when he hits enough. I do actually think he'd be able to keep back any attackers for a short while, but still would not last very long. He's a character who sort of wants attention and will draw it to himself after all.
And he's got a
Possibly he's
bat,
staring at
which
his
is not
blades
exactly
and
a
someone he
best
can't
weapon
trust sees
possible.
this as a challenge and tosses a casual hatchet at him. Skull Merchant I think would survive for a bit, but would ultimately fall fairly quickly as she's someone who seeks a challenge in the realm. Faced with many characters who are far more powerful than her, she might try and sort of stand her ground with a bit of support from her drones. I could see her repelling some of the more human characters too, like Legion or Pig, but then come crashing into a stone wall like Nemesis, with her double blade shattering on impact, and then being shattered herself. Gunslinger in a similar way, despite being competent, I think falls fairly quickly too. I think he's a little too confident with
His
his
weapon is
experience, and
he
would
only
want
gets
to
one
try
use
and
out of
fight a lot of
before
these
3 will it back
villains
in, then he
and
can't use it
even
again,
hit. I could see him
which is
spearing
quite a
few
bit of
and
limit.
causing some damage, but in a similar way, when coming face to face with a greater force, he'd simply be too slow and lacking with his single spear shot to do much about it.
He has one shot, then it's out.
Myers drags him in and then realizes that's not going to kill him. Myers then making a new knife holder out of him. Charlotte of the twins I could see surviving for a decent while too due to her survival skills.
Victor,
I
not
think she'd
really,
be
though.
heavily protective of Victor as well, and deploy him out, fighting to keep him safe. She'd likely not be confrontational and would be able to get away from the initial fight, but possibly followed by another character. From here she likely doesn't survive with little protection and just her blade. Demogorgon leaping onto her, and Victor leaping away just in time perhaps. At least Victor escapes though. Our second wave begins with Victor being promptly wiped off the face.
So, okay, so Dracula, how is Chucky still in? He's just a fucking doll. Doctor, I do see him causing a lot of madness with his zaps. Huntress, she's a skilled warrior who's killed hundreds and hundreds of soldiers. Michael is basically unkillable. Spirit is literally a fucking spirit. Hag, with her hexes, can do some traps and surprise people. Wraith can go invisible. Okay. Most of these characters I do see do make a lot of sense as to why they're still in. But I do see some people who would end up getting knocked out now as well.
Of the earth as Nemesis accidentally steps on him. Chucky, I can imagine seeing this and laughing before promptly being shattered to pieces by a Kanabo flying down to the sound of an Oni scream. Tiffany could jump in maybe to try and help, but forget the other Yamaoka blade with Rin swiping her away.
Yep.
Before this I could see Chucky and Tiffany teaming, but it wouldn't last too
They
long.
made it
Haga
to
gets
around wave 2,
stepping
which is
away at the
surprising.
very start and
Yep.
planting a bunch of traps around herself to try and ward away attackers. She could maybe hex a few totems, cursing the area around her and all of those inside. Eventually I could see someone simply coming over her way and quickly putting an end to her. I think she would fight back well, maybe trying to bite, maybe trying to claw, but would ultimately be overpowered.
Yeah, she has so little that she can really do, honestly.
Doctor
She's
I
not
could see
super powerful.
surviving for a little while,
'Cause his
with him
zaps.
able to put everyone into madness as he rapidly shocks the area. He could cause a lot of chaos and would likely enjoy it. Lots of characters swinging at hallucinations, but eventually one of them is going to be real, and he's going to be on the other end of Ghostface's
Yeah.
blade. He is
Well,
just a human after
I
all, and all
don't
he
really
has
think
really
Ghostface
is
would be one to
bad.
take
I
him
guess
down,
it would
honestly.
cause a lot of
Ghostface is...
issues for everyone though, but
I'm
not making
surprised
it very
Ghostface has
far.
even made it this far,
Ghostface would
honestly.
make it further
Yeah, there
than
we
some
go.
of the weaker characters, as I could see him sneaking away in an early clash of characters, managing to go and hide and potentially pick a specific
Ghostface made it
target,
farther
as
than I
that's
really
where
thought he
his
should have
strength
made
is
it.
going to be. He is tactical and will take his time when it comes to this. He'll maybe hide in the trees and find a perfect moment to strike. As he figures out which doctor is real though, and goes in for an attack finally, he's going to immediately become very exposed, which will ultimately be his downfall. All the time he was stalking, perhaps Myers would be watching from even further behind. The true master stalker grabbing him from his feet and plunging his blade into him. Minotaur would go into a rage and would be able to hold its own for
I
a
don't know
while,
which
but
character
would
this
be
is
way
over,
too weak
honestly.
in
Oh, this
fighting
is over
and fall
Oni.
relatively quickly as a result.
So he's got
Drawing
the
too much
freaking
attention,
Oni
it would cause a
the
lot
club
of
as well.
damage, but go down hard against someone bigger and angrier like Nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
Krampus would possibly do okay, but couldn't really be
Isn't
stealthy,
Krampus over
as the
Huntress?
little bells on him would give it away.
Oh no, Krampus is over Trapper
Seriously,
by
I
the looks
think
of it.
he'd try and fight, do a bit of damage, but ultimately lose to someone stronger. Maybe Dracula comes down and sinks his claws into him. Another altercation I could see happening is between Huntress, Mordeo, Baba Yaga, and Werelk. The four of them all wielding axes and hatchets. They would instantly view one another as threats. A huge clash would happen, I can imagine, with each tossing their hatchets with pinpoint accuracy, each barely getting
Person to
by
win
or
that,
surviving, swiping other characters out
I
of the
would
way
say
as they
probably
might.
would end up
The
be
ultimate
Huntress in the
winner of
end.
this clash in particular, I think, would be the Werelk,
Oh,
the apex predator of the bunch, and
so Werelk
essentially
wins
just
that
a
fight then?
beefed-up version of Huntress. The other three would fall, and I think Werelk comes out victorious from the pack. Naughty Bear is a character I do think you may be surprised has lasted so long. However, I do think he would last quite a while.
He's just a stuffed
Sure,
bear.
he doesn't have much defense as a stuffed bear, but it also means he can't really bleed, so many of the
True.
more human characters will actually be more helpless than him. He could
I mean,
tank a few
just
hits.
rip him
It's
apart,
only when he
honestly.
gets some stuffing pulled out or a leg torn off or something that he's going to take some real damage. Therefore, I think he could survive this long purely by means of being able to take a beating, but also return a
That
decent
doesn't make
one.
quite a bit of sense, honestly. They
Eventually, I
could
could
just
see
take a lot of
maybe
beatings
Knight
from
and the
him.
boys grabbing an arm or leg each and exploding him into stuffing, though. Hunk is another surprising character to make it this far.
This guy's
with
over
a
Doctor,
twisty
I'm pretty
knife
sure.
and
No,
some
it's over
spiked
Legion by the
armor
looks of
with
it.
his outfit. However, I don't think he'd last much longer despite all that he has survived. He is up against inhuman monsters and gods beyond this
Like
point.
Demogorgon,
And so I think he'd take down a few characters that are
Dredge,
weaker, but would face down one
Dracula.
character too strong and would soon be helpless and find himself inside the mouth of the Demogorgon. He is strong, but not against this competition. Myers is another character that I do think hits a bit of a wall beyond a certain point.
Wow.
No protection and just a kitchen knife.
Michael out this early.
Where before he could even resurrect
There was
himself,
actually thinking of this in
he'd
the
be
like
back
this in
down
the
again,
past,
and
many
his
years, like a
knife
few
would
years
just
ago,
not be doing any
when
damage.
Dredge came out,
I think
and
a few
Dredge had
characters
actually
could
won
take
that
turns
technically.
hitting him down each time he tries to sit up, and eventually I think he'd just yield.
But
and
after that,
not bother
Dredge
with
came out,
another
there's been many
resurrection,
new add-ons
or
after
perhaps
that.
some kind of supernatural weapon like Pyramid Head's Great Knife could cast him down for good. Singularity, I think, would be the final one of this group to fall. Despite Hux being quite powerful and intelligent, he actually doesn't have much to fight with aside his claw, which is
Yeah,
quite
claw can't really do
awkward
much,
because
honestly,
it's
because
sort of
it's just
hanging
a
half
claw, which
onto
is just
him.
meant for
I think
stabbing.
he could dart about the battlefield, materializing in different places and dealing a lot of damage, but ultimately
How is Unknown still? He only has a fire axe. And I guess this sort of tentacles from his back?
I could see him trying to face down Oni, for example, and just not being able to keep up with his fast strikes, leaving him compromised. Our third wave would open up with the Wraith finally being located. After cloaking at the very start and retreating to a corner of the arena, it would only be when something like a Xenomorph was tossed into him that he'd fall to the floor and be broken from his cloak.
Yeah.
He'd try and fight back and maybe cause some damage.
Wraith was actually in the final two in the last one because he ended up cloaking and hiding.
Human strikes. Xenomorph I could see being taken down by the two Yamaokas, teaming up to take down the creature, with it trapped between the two of them, unable to escape. The two of them
Rin and the Oni and also Spirit will both most likely work together because those two are known to work together because of the same family.
Its skin able to be pierced by their family blades. Werelk would put up a better fight, I think, fighting with its antlers, axe, and fists, but ultimately would not be able to overcome the both of them,
Mm-hmm.
falling to multiple oncoming
The fact that
heroic
it's 2-on-1
opponents.
for most of
Freddy
those
could
people,
go
that's
next, I think.
bad.
He would last so long as a result of his ability to resist damage within the dream world,
Mm-hmm.
and pulling many characters into it. However, I don't think he could deal all too much damage, especially just with his powers in the realm.
He only has a
His
clawed
stunted
glove, which
and
is not going to do
definitely
much.
weaker, but he could last a long time, able to use his dream world to avoid most damage,
Yeah.
but eventually a character would just put a stop to him, maybe
Like
Wesker
Pyramid Head.
slamming him into the wall and finishing him. Next would be the Armored Titan and Warhammer Titan, who I don't think would team, but instead clash. The two of them targeting one another and wanting to prove
Aren't these guys from
themselves
Attack
the
on Titan?
strongest.
I remember I saw a collab like that a while back.
Altered realm selves, and I could see both of them falling at
It looks like one of them's over the Oni.
defeating one another or being left open to attack after sustaining injury.
I'm not sure who the
Both
others
of
are.
them
Maybe
falling.
Rin they might be
The final
over?
clash of this wave, I think, would be Spirit and Oni together taking on the Knight and his boys. I could see Knight taking down Spirit, leading Oni into a rage possibly,
Yeah.
bursting out in anger at his fallen great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter, taking down the guards, and both Knight and Oni entering into an all-out brawl, ending with both falling at one another's blades.
Honestly, that would not surprise me.
With the clash of many of the stronger characters who would have survived up to this point. William Birkin and Nemesis could clash, and I could see Nemesis coming out as the victor, asserting himself as the strongest BOW, putting a foot down onto Birkin.
How is Wesker still? I know he's buffed by the Ouroboros.
By the entrance of Pyramid Head, with his great knife being brought down and easily slicing through Nemesis. Despite his hulking mass, Pyramid Head's blade would be far too sharp, I think, and simply slice Nemesis in two.
Really?
The final fight, I think, would just be chaos, honestly. Wesker would be bounding about, grabbing others,
Most likely.
seeing himself as superior to all others. Maybe he tries to approach one of the strongest characters like Vecna, trying to grab him with his Ouroboros, but being quickly deflected and tossed aside.
Yeah.
Defeated quickly. Both Luxie and Pyramid Head may clash over who is the true punisher of guilt. I do think Pyramid Head would win this with his much more effective weapon over Luxie's wrench, able to
a wrench versus a sword bigger than Russia. I'd say the sword wins.
Clashing together, two monstrosities. I do think Unknown could win this fight, defeating the Queen with use of its inner tentacles.
Really? I don't think the Unknown wins against Xenomorph Queen.
To her acid blood. A final axe down and the Queen would go, I think. Here's where I think it'd maybe just be Pyramid Head, Sadako, Dredge, Vecna, Dracula, Pinhead, and Chatterer. Both Pinhead and Chatterer would be teamed up, of course, and I could see them surviving by deflecting all others with their chains, keeping everyone at bay and using their powers to damage all attackers. I could see the two of them taking on Pyramid Head by means of binding him,
then taking Pyramid Head out, probably.
Casting him down to the labyrinth. The only character I could see breaking this unstoppable duo would be Vecna, using his spells to cast them
honestly,
away.
Vecna or Dracula is the one who could take this two out, honestly.
Or maybe simply depowering them and then finishing them with his blade. The final wave would be our heavy hitters remaining, the strongest of the strongest who would survive all others. Sadako, Dredge, Vecna, and Dracula. This is a tough fight to decide on a winner for, as all of them are sort of immortal.
All four of them have sort of hexes.
It would honestly be...
For example, Sadako, she has the 7 days book thing, like the Ring, whatever it's called, from the Ring movie. She has the 7 days where she can just demanifest and make them all die. Vecna could probably just literally just kill him, honestly. Dracula can honestly... Well, Dracula's superhuman for a reason, because he's basically unkillable, honestly. He really is. The Dredge, he could just drag him into his fog, and then they're gone forever.
Sort of a stalemate for a while, given none can debatably take damage. Sadako can demanifest, Dredge is just a fog, and Vecna and Dracula are both godlike beings.
They literally are gods.
Though that the two with the greatest power is Vecna and Dracula.
Yeah.
I could see Dredge getting defeated by just being absorbed or dissipated, maybe. It's also a creature that can't really attack with much power with just its fleshy limbs.
Dredge really doesn't have a lot of power, so I think he's out.
And absorb Dredge. That'd be kind of crazy. Probably not grounded in any actual lore, but that'd be pretty cool, right? Sadako maybe goes out by having her forced to manifest through a spell cast by Vecna.
Wouldn't surprise me if Vecna does that.
And would quickly fall, but probably could curse the two of them still. This leaves us with an all-out battle between Vecna and Dracula. The two of them would go back and forth, I reckon, between their abilities, changing forms and casting spells.
I think who would win that fight...
Well, I think it would depend on the day. I know that's a bit of a disappointing answer, but I really do think...
I do think it's actually 50-50, because both of them are really powerful.
different ways, so I think it really could go either way. It depends how you kind of scale them. So I'm going to leave it up to you. As this fight goes on, the ultimate winner would be Vecna, defeating Dracula with his spells,
Honestly,
casting him back,
I
and
do agree with
finally
that
putting
personally
an
because
end to
Vecna
him.
is super
Probably not for
powerful.
good, but defeating him, I suppose. So Vecna
I will
is
say that
our
Vecna
winner,
would in the
the
end win
most
this fight as
powerful
well.
of Dead by Daylight's killers.
Congratulations, Vecna. You did good in this fight, I guess. Honestly, in the end, like I knew Dracula's always been strong in the lore of the games, and I knew Vecna from Dungeons and Dragons is also super strong. Same with Sadako, and also freaking Dredge. I knew Dredge was just a fog. It's basically impossible to hurt him. So honestly, I'm not really surprised on this outcome semi. But honestly, good video. I really did like it. So thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Bye bye.